Not yet. 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Hi to all of our viewers. Welcome. It's Friday night. We're here for our live. We are bridging perspectives from various disciplines and really just having a conversation today to talk about how we can support student success. We have a bunch of different types of folks on this call, from teachers to principals to social workers to school psychologists. And my vision for this call was really just to see how, sort of like for folks who are tuning in, folks who have multidisciplinary teams or problem solving team meetings, really just like bridging the gap. Like, how can we support each other, and how can we support each other while we're supporting students, right? Because we all have very, very similar goals. So, as a reminder, my name is Dr. Krista Edwards. I am a practicing school psychologist and also co-founder of the Black School Psychologists Network, where I also am the director of programming and community outreach. And I'm just gonna kind of like keep it going. So I have my colleague here who I'll let introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sadia Abdullahi. I'm a school social worker. I support in a specific role right now, a really special role that's been created to support the learning of African, Caribbean, and Black students, just because of the disproportionality of experiences that Black students experience within the education system. So I'm really privileged to be providing this tailored support. In my spare time, I like to beekeep, so I'm trying to bring beekeeping into mental health. I know it's strange, right? But it's a really cool experience. And I think bringing nature and bringing Black students and Black folks into nature to promote mental health and well-being is kind of my life mission. And that's what I hope to do.
I love that.
Man, you're courageous.
Yeah.
Right?
Man,
Listen.
Yeah.
Come play with the bees.
that sound alone is like, nah, I'm good on
But you
it.
know what? It calms you down. It really does. After a while, that note, that C note, brings your whole emotions down. I know it sounds crazy, I promise you, but come out. Come to Canada. Come, Miles. Come, Byron. I invite you as well, Shaquira. Come
play with the bees.
I'll watch from a distance.
Okay.
You know what? I'm not gonna lie. My friend here has made me honey. Like, she does honey, and she's doing skincare products and all types of. Listen, I found me a very good sister out here. Okay, like we gotta stick together. And I also forgot to mention, I also support in the identity specific role too, supporting African, Black, and Caribbean students at my board. So a lot of the work we do is in tandem throughout the board, district wide initiatives, but also we have a crucial role in supporting consulting, providing assessments, feedback, etc., with teachers, staff, and administration who do want to kind of seek support when it comes to helping African, Black, and Caribbean students. So I'm gonna like go to the box next to me. Miles, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, what's up? How y'all doing? Miles Williams. I'm an elementary school principal at Bricolage Academy in New Orleans, Louisiana. This is my second full year in the role. But prior to that, I was a director of community and culture. We focused on like, how do we create a safe, equitable, and joyful experience for kids in school? And so I've always dreamed of being a school leader. That's something that's like been a part of just who I am. And for such a long time, I'm a social worker by training, and really want to create and am creating with my team of wonderful educators, a place that is solely focused on being a safe, kind, intentional, and joyful place for kids to go to school, centered on the Black student experience, because we know that we're a very diverse school, where 60% of our kids are Black, 30% white, 10% mixed race or other. And I think what we talk about are racial diversity, which is really optically, you can see that, but our socioeconomic diversity is great, right? So we have some of like the largest gaps in terms of like 60% of our kids are economically disadvantaged, but like we also some of the most affluent families in the city, everyone in between. And so because of that, like when we're talking about equity, it's really, really interesting to be centering the needs of our most marginalized, which is our Black students, Black low income students with exceptionalities, and creating a school environment that supports them and then inherently supports everybody else. And so it takes a lot of intentional work, but I have such great people who work alongside me to help do this work, and grateful to be here with y'all tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so glad you said that because it does take unlearning and decolonizing the way we see education, right? Because historically it's been centered around Eurocentric views and whiteness. And so centering, the lived experiences of our students, of marginalized groups, is really, really important, right? Okay, so I'm going to go down to Shaquira. You want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hey, everyone. My name is Shaquira Langley. I'm a 10th year early childhood educator. I also am the host of the Millennial Teacher Podcast. And it started because my first year in education, I was a hot mess. And I wanted to open up a space where I knew I was not the only one. I feel like a lot of people don't know, but as teachers, we go through a training program and they throw us in the classroom, and it's supposed to be all sunshine and roses, and it's not like that, if I could be completely honest. And especially serving minority students in low income areas, it is a challenge within itself. So before I was able to teach, I had to learn the community first. And so I knew I wasn't the only one. And so I created the Millennial Teacher Podcast, and it's just a community of educators, specifically millennials, just coming together and doing the hard work of being an educator. I also am the creative tips for teachers apparel, and we raise awareness for just teachers being underserved, with whether it's pay or just recognition and all, and also giving back to teachers, because we all know that we do not get paid that well. And so it's like a small mini prize that we give to teachers who are doing good work. And instead of you coming out of pocket, we gift you with just a little tip to keep you going, because the work that we do is hard. And so just all things education.
Love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And at the end, we definitely got to drop all of our links and social media and all that so people can support when they watch this. And last but not least, I'll let Byron introduce himself.
Yeah. Look, Krista, I thought you were gonna go with the name where it says Byron and give me that whole introduction.
You're
Yeah. But
unserious.
listen, we're gonna have a good conversation
Just
today.
smart
But I am. I'll take how you introduce yourself, Dr. Byron McClure or Byron, whatever you want to refer to me as. But I'm honored to be part of this very important conversation, and to have such a interdisciplinary team to talk about mental health broadly, mental health for our young people, and for us as well. This is a conversation that we have to have right now, and then move towards actionable outcomes, which my work has always centered on. I told Chris and I, we had a good conversation earlier. And my mission has always been the same. I've been in the game for 13, 14 years, working in the DMV, which is home. And has always been to improve outcomes for youth of color, but for youth who look like me. And so I've been able to do that as a psychologist, working at elementary, middle, high school, working across all levels. Had the opportunity to work in an alternative school, did some work at a correctional facility. So working across all these spaces, and the mission has always been the same, to improve outcomes for us. I've been able to do some really awesome work. I've seen the needs, and the needs are only getting more intense. And because the needs are getting more intense, that means we have to continue taking action. And one of the things that I've done recently that I'm very proud of, I've assembled an amazing team of Black women to prioritize supporting, elevating, and advancing the work of Black school psychologists. And that entity is the Black School Psych Network. And I'm proud to be the CEO of that network. And we're here. We're mission driven. And we're going to get us into the field so that we can continue that impact. So let's get into this conversation, y'all.
Yeah, but just a
Let's do
reminder, our
it.
mission is to support, elevate, and advance the work of Black school psychologists.
The
The idea is
work.
that there is a trickle down effect, right? When we're supporting each other in these roles, we are inherently supporting the clients, the youth, the teachers, the staff, everyone that we all work with, that we come across, the families. And so the idea is that systemically, right, we are building a better society, right? And so all of us carry really, really important roles. I'll say it again, but I want to open this up and do a mental health check, because we got mental health practitioners on here, and we can't not
We
start
got to
this
check
off
in.
by checking in. I check in with my students all the time. I know teachers that do it. We got Zen dens. we were doing some presentations today. I said we snap because this is a Zen presentation.
Yeah.
But I just
And
want to check
Krista, like
in.
in a real way too, though, right? Like, and
Yeah.
also shout out, we got some viewers on. Viewers, this is for you all too. But Krista, that check-in is so important. And Krista and I felt like it was a divine check-in that we had. And we were just having a real conversation because
Yeah.
man, this work, like we're centered in it, and we're in the midst of it. And how can we do this work and feel this insurmountable pressure that's going on around us? And at times, like we could feel insignificant, we could feel like our work isn't making a difference. So like when we say we want to check in, like let's check in. So how y'all feeling?
Let's check
Like
in.
for real, for real.
Can I go?
Go ahead.
I'm feeling
did y'all feel that? Like we all just took this collective.
collective.
Do we need to
So,
do it?
so what I often do whenever I go into spaces and whenever I'm presenting to students or whenever I'm in spaces where the tension is really high, I offer one breath for you, one breath for me, which really grounds us in the moment, right? So I'm inviting everybody, those that are watching us as a panel today, to do that with me. So one breath for you, so deep breath for you, really deep. And one breath for us. So join us again in this deep breath. And I can tell you, walking into spaces and the workshops that we're doing right now for intermediate students is on the history and legacy of the N-word, and that's super heavy, right? And so again, that racial trauma piece, and we could talk about that a little bit, but I will tell you, when we are in that space, it's heavy. The world is a heavy place right now, and like you said, Byron, I think we're coming into this within our lived experiences and within our identities as well, so it carries that added weight, right, of feeling hopeless. So I can tell you, I feel heavy. I feel heavy with what's happening in the world. I feel heavy with the injustices that we're constantly seeing. And I can only imagine if I'm feeling this way as a mental health practitioner, that the students and the families that I support also are feeling that way. So I often give space for people to just be. So that's how I'm feeling, is just I'm happy to be here today.
Yeah.
I'm super happy to be a part of this. And this is kind of my one nice thing I'm doing for myself today, which is to be in community and to learn from people that are in these roles with me. So I just wanted to thank you all. And that's how I'm feeling.
I think I want to echo that. Byron and I had a conversation earlier, and I said, don't make me cry. I've been crying all week, okay? Because the work is so heavy that we are doing. I feel a moral obligation to do this work. It's all part of my purpose, and it's actually what keeps me going, but then how do you manage when this is a part of your purpose, but your purpose is heavy, So how do you navigate that, right? There's some dissonance between I'm supporting people support their mental health, but my mental health is like crumbling, you know what I mean? Like, it's a reality though, and it's not just us as mental health practitioners who are experiencing those challenges. I know the teachers are, I know the administration is, I know the parents are, and we know the kids are, so I'm so glad we did this breathing, because I feel just like an ounce lighter from that, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah. No, I feel that. I feel, if I could be honest, like a sense of like a woosah. We just got on Thanksgiving break, and this whole past week I'm just like, okay, I gotta put in grades. I gotta like, sometimes teachers, we say we feel like we have to put on a show, especially for the little babies. Like, they're 5 and 6 and they eat off of everything. And so I'm like, sure, but I'm also somebody's daughter, and I'm also like just juggling life in itself and like figuring out next steps. And back to what you said, it's like, this is purposeful, but it's sometimes the purpose can be such a burden to be honest. Like, sometimes I just numb it. Like, there's so much that's loud in our ears before we can even teach. And so sometimes I think that silence can be loud. And this past week, and like just figuring out like what I want to do, whether I want to stay teaching or like, I love it, but it's also heavy, but where else am I going to go? And the kids need me. Like, I just been kind of silent. And so my silence has been loudness, in a sense. Like, if you know me personally, I'm never quiet. And so when I am silent, my brain is just on 1,000 and I have nothing to say because it's too much sometimes. But now that I have a week to pause, I can get back into this space where I can be open and I can do the work and I can feel what my feelings, but I also can be still. So
Yeah.
I'm just happy to be right now. Like I don't have to think too much. Like I'm just here.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Miles,
Yeah.
I want you to jump in, but Shakira, one of the things you said, there's this book called Essentialism. I don't know if y'all have heard of it or read it, but to me, that is my number one book. Uh, the Bible is there, but Essentialism is my number one book of all time, like hands down. And it's this concept of everything that you just described, and with all the noise that's
Mhm.
going on, like it helps you to center, and it talks about carving out that time in a very real way to have space to think, and we don't do that often enough. And being able to have that think time so that you can process and make sense, and then be able to hone in on what's most essential. So I'm glad that you called that out. But Miles, you got it, man.
Yeah, man. No, first of all, I'm glad we have this space to like just check in. I think it's so important. It's something that I try to do in terms of leading our meetings at school. Is just like, hey, bro, like let's see each other as humans first. Like I talk about connection before content, right? Like how do we see each other as human? I think in the reflection, like we can do a better job of incorporating mindfulness practices. We do it with kids all the time, but with adults, we don't do the best job of that. I'm exhausted right now. I ain't gonna lie to you. I am physically, mentally, emotionally exhausted. This is the hardest part of the school year. Like they call it Darktober. It's a grind, man. And like
That's what it is.
I,
October.
I go into I go in the building, it's dark. I leave the building, it's dark. I think I relate to something that every single one of you have said in terms of like how do you make space for yourself and like prioritize yourself when your purpose is pouring into others and pouring out and giving and supporting other people constantly, and really struggling with the balance of like how do I show up as a brother, how do I show up as a son. Shout out to my mom, who I think just texted me and told me she's watching. How do I show
What's
up?
up,
uh,
Miles?
yeah,
Hi,
how do I show
Mom.
up? How do I show up as a human, man? I think that it's like in particular in the principal role, I'm a leader of people. I'm also a manager of people. I make mistakes. I'll own up to those mistakes when I make them, but very little grace is given to the leader, right? Like you're expected to know all the answers. You're expected to do the right thing all the time. You're expected to uh, make everybody happy, and that's not possible in community with people. And so I feel like I carry that weight a lot. And so we literally, I was talking to before we got on, literally just walked in the door, threw a different shirt on, and hopped on here. And I feel the sense of like release now that I'm talking to y'all. I know that when we get off live, I'm gonna be asleep. So and hibernate for a couple of days. But I think one of the things that y'all both talked about is one of the things that I want to do in this 10-day period is like, how do I prioritize my time, protect my time about my priorities, which right now is like taking care of my physical and mental health, and build that into my day. Like you'll see me drinking throughout this call because I realized throughout my day in this check-in, I didn't drink no water today. I didn't eat today unless somebody gave me something, and it was like a Thanksgiving feast, so people were giving me cupcakes. That ain't nourishing, right? And then I'm mad. Thank you. There you go. So I feel like this water bottle right here, like I got this much in me. You know what I'm saying? I feel like this, but it's like, yo, like if I feel guilty or I don't, which is a useless emotion, if I feel guilty or if I feel like I'm not taking care of myself well, why am I telling everybody else to take care of themselves?
Yeah.
Right? Like I got to do that. And so I'm excited to reset over these next couple of days, back on track.
Yeah. That's good, man. I'm glad we have this space to check in. It's essential that we do so. Miles, man, everything you're saying is resonating. As you held up the water bottle, my water bottle is almost on E as well. And like we go through, the day and forget to do basic things to take care of yourself. But for my check-in, all the things that you all have mentioned, but I am also feeling really energized in the work that I'm doing. I think in part because I read the book Essentialism, and like,
Okay.
nah,
Now
for real. Like, listen, y'all got to get on it. But so here's one of the things that it talks about is the ability to say no. And by doing that, like it allows you again to prioritize the most essential thing. And I've really had to be selective with my yeses, and that has allowed me to really protect the things that I'm doing. And I have been doing a lot of different things, a lot of traveling, with speaking engagements. It's time away from the kids and family. I got 3 kids. Y'all might see them doing some backflips and things in the back, but it's a lot being away from family, and so doing this work, it can be draining. It can be a lot, but I have been energized because of all the travel I've been able to do. Yo, the work that we can do, like the time is now for it. And like it really lights me on fire, like with the opportunity that we have before us. And like seeing that there's a very real need, um, there is a very real conversation that has to happen on mental health. Like, yo, we got a real opportunity to make a difference, to make a big impact. And yes, it's a lot of work. Yes, it's draining, but who better than us? Like, who better to carry this mantle? You know, we got social workers, we got teachers, we got psychologists, like we got us in this space. So I'm energized to get to it.
Thanks for energizing us.
Yeah, man.
No, that's helpful. I think I'm gonna definitely check that book out. One thing that we've been talking about recently is, how do we cope though, right? How do we cope? Because the reality is a lot of us are burned out. A lot of us are exhausted. A lot of us are struggling with what's happening in the world and finding the energy to support. Like that's a reality. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that reality in order to understand how we can support one another. I was working on a kind of tips for just coping with some of the trauma that we experience, and within that tips type of I guess paper, whatever handout. Some things that are evidence based, especially for people in the Black community, are to be in community with each other. So being in community is so important. It's so important to us. And so I just want to put that out there for the viewers, for everyone on this call. Those of us, we in the schools, we active, we on the ground, we in the trenches.
So true.
Finding our community is so important, and being around like-minded people, right? Sometimes you got to vent and process how the day went, and that person that you're venting to or whomever, like it's got to be a space where you feel safe to really just let that out, right? Miles mentioned basic needs: drinking your water, eating. You know what else? Taking deep breaths throughout the day.
Yeah.
I got sick a few weeks ago because I was writing so many reports and the screen time had me dizzy. And I looked into it, and what we're finding, well, there's evidence that if you are on the screen time, even if you're scrolling, you're not, like, your breathing is different. So you have to be mindful to take deep breaths so that you can get oxygen to the brain, right? And we don't even realize we kind of start breathing.
True.
Yeah, we stop breathing when we're on the computer, when it's screen time. We don't realize we're doing it, but we are.
Wow.
So yeah, when I talk about basic needs, I'm so glad, Maj, you brought that up. Deep breaths, water, sleep, rest. There's some other things that I could talk about at the end, but this is what I've been pouring my time into, figuring out how do we cope with what's going on. Some other things were activism, so getting involved. If there's a passion if you have a passion that you really want to like put some energy behind, that's really important. And setting those boundaries, which is not very easy, especially in our line of work.
As you were talking, I thought of something. Everything you're saying, I agree with. In addition to that, I think about, in my role in particular, like leadership is lonely. Like I have access to so much information. I can only share certain bits with certain people, and I have to like compartmentalize it, right? Because like you might be asking me about a specific need for your child. You might be talking about a teacher that you need help with. You might be talking about a social work related thing that it's a mandated reporter thing that I need to make sure I'm aware of. And like, how do we support these things? Like this person's getting consequence, whatever. The bus situation is not working the way it's supposed to. The kitchen, the cafeteria, like it's a bunch of million things in my mind, right? And I have to make sure that everyone gets the information that they deserve and that they need, and I'm transparent. But also there's a lot that I can't. And I struggle with, just personally, I struggle with, all right, this is all on me. So I'm going to keep it to myself. And I turn in. This is something I've always done. And that's also not helpful for like my personal relationships.
Yeah.
But then also it's not fair to myself and my own health, right? When I'm turning all those things inside. And so need to be in community. But then also like I'm introverted, like naturally I'm more introverted in terms of like I need to recharge by myself. So how do I do that? And also know that I need to be in community.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. The second thing, we talked about burnout a little bit earlier in basic needs. And I was talking to a mentor of mine the other day, and they said, you seem like you're burned out. There's no amount of rest that's going to fix this burnout. There's no amount of money that's going to fix this burnout. What's going to fix this burnout is gratitude. And like what are you grateful for? Even their gratitude, right? And so like this past week, especially going into a season of thanks, I talked a lot to our team about how do we express gratitude to one another, because this is a thankless job. Like there's so much that goes unnoticed. There's so much that other people do not see day to day, no matter what your role is. That helps us be able to go, helps kids be able to go each day. And so how are we expressing that gratitude to one another and say, hey, I see you right now. I really hard. Like even when don't feel successful, like I see you go so far, bro. And so like I want to let y'all know, man, like I don't know what y'all are going through right now. I don't know, like whatever, but like I see you and I appreciate it. Because like that's it's important that you hear that. It's important that you hear that and that you feel that. Because not a lot of people are going to give you that gratitude. And so wanted to share that because I think that's a basic need that we all have as well.
Miles, we see you too, man. And I want to let you know, just as a Black male in this education space, it's easy, and our Black women as well, our Black sisters, like it's easy for all of us not to be seen. But Miles, for you, like it's very lonely, especially in leadership in these spaces, and you can be the only one. And it's easy to get lost in that. And so, yes, you see us, but we see you as well, man. So good stuff.
But also, Miles, I think that's huge for you to acknowledge because, to be honest, as a teacher perspective, we attack y'all a lot. Like, I'm not even going to sit here and lie to y'all. It's like, y'all just want us to test these kids and standards, and you're coming in here observing me. When's the last time y'all showed us some gratitude? I'm not going to lie. We attack y'all a lot. And for you to vulnerably say leadership is lonely, like, it is heart-wrenching as a teacher because I feel like sometimes we really kind of like feel like you guys think that it's strictly a business, but we know that you guys need us, right? And you have so much under your belt. You have a whole operation to run, and of course you guys need us, but we can have selfish needs and be like the leaders don't care, this and the third, but we know that's not true. But it's honestly just frustration as a teacher, point blank, period.
I'll be doing our leaders dirty. Goodness gracious.
I'm not the one. I am not the one to sit here and lie because I've rolled my eyes one too many times when I see them coming in.
I can feel it coming through the screen. Goodness.
Yes, because then why you observing me the week before break? Yes, all of that,
So are you the one? No, this is my classroom. You got to get out my classroom. Don't be coming in here.
Yeah, it's like we just have so much on our plates, and so I know that you guys go through a lot too. So just from teacher to leader, we appreciate y'all, and just don't feel too bad when we attack because we go through a lot, and I know you guys go through a lot. I just think it's huge for you to acknowledge that, and I'm just telling you what all teachers are thinking. That's
real talk, and I want to make sure I state this. Like, so for my teachers, who I think they've heard me say this, and I'm gonna say it again, and for all teachers out there, like, we cannot do this work without you. We also are. I can express it for myself and the school leaders that I'm connected with. Like, we understand that the state of education is right now, and we also understand that like people are fleeing from this profession. In this city, in particular, 30% of our teachers leave the profession every year. That's over 900 teachers are leaving in New Orleans every single year.
Wow.
We need you. Our kids need you. What in my mind as a school leader, I'm like, what do we need to do to make sure that we are taking care of our teachers? Is that like, how do I protect your time? How do I compensate you the way that you need to be compensated? And then also, like, compensation isn't just money, right? And like, it is a finite resource, right? Like, it's finite. How are we making things more accessible for teachers? How are we and I can talk about this at a later date, but how are we making things more accessible for teachers? How are we creating community for teachers? Because I think one of the hardest things in our school is like teachers don't know, like some teachers don't know how good they got it, right? Compared to like where other places. But at the same time, they also deserve more. And so how do we give them that? And also all of us still be treating each other like humans. Because I think that like I'm expected to be superhero, which sometimes I feel like I am. I feel like I'm Batman, you know what I'm saying? I feel like I can do it. But then I'm also very much a human who's got a lot of things that I'm juggling. And if I'm not prioritizing what you feel like is the most important priority, doesn't necessarily mean it's not important. It means it's not my priority right now. Just like your priority is not my priority. So how do we communicate that in a way that's productive and everybody gets what they need?
Right.
And mostly what they want, right? So thank you for acknowledgement.
Wow.
I can tell you as someone who goes school to school as a social worker, right? Our role is kind of supporting multiple schools. You can see that disjointing, right? When there is that tension or there isn't that cohesiveness amongst the admin and the educators, or there is that perception, right? It trickles down to the students as well. So often we're kind of in this, I don't want to call it a privileged space, but sometimes when we do come in, because we're paraprofessionals, we're coming in on a specific caseload or a half a day or whatever, we feel that as the outsiders, like objective observers, right? And so you can see where there is that dichotomy between educators and admin. And so, Miles, it's great that you recognize that. And it's great, Shaquira, that you're able to be like, yeah, you know, at times I have been a bit hard. I think there are schools where we walk in and we're like, folks don't know what's happening from one end to the next. And the students and the families feel that, right? And that's where there is that issue of students.
Yeah, and I think she froze up. Miles, Shaquira, y'all still there?
Yes.
All right, you froze up a little bit. If you want to finish that, I think you were closing up that last sentence.
Did y'all hear us?
I think we froze.
Yeah, we caught everything. I think you were wrapping up the last sentence.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think that's where that communication piece and that gratitude and building that into your staff meetings is super critical, because like you said, that's what is the antidote to the burnout, is that gratitude piece, because money is a finite resource. It's not as if there's an infinite pool, but that little bit of I see you and I'm grateful to you goes a long way in terms of filling folks' gas tanks.
Yeah, man.
Shout
And
out
I
to
think
the
about like
healing, right? The healing taking place on this call.
like, but it's like it's love languages, right? It's like how are we like? I'm about to get on soapbox really quickly, but I'm thinking about like how do we take care of people's time, right? How do we show you that we value your time and then make the most of it? How are we making sure we're giving you words of affirmation, that you're getting gratitude, acts of service? What can I take off your plate? Physical touch isn't necessarily a thing in the workplace. And what's the one I'm missing? Gifts, giving gifts. People love swag.
Gifts.
People love like little
Yeah.
Man, I walked around this week, yo. It's our 10-year anniversary. And we got these, we had a 10-year anniversary event and we had these pins. And so like a bunch of donors came in the building. Leaders got these pins that we were talking to donors with. And I got a text from a teacher immediately. Get a pin. I was like, hold up. I'm coming around with some pins. And I came around with a bag of pins and stickers, and they were like, it was like kids. Like, oh, I got one. Like, right. And it's like people like little things. Like, it doesn't have to be some big extravagant thing. And so how can we be more intentional about making sure teachers feel appreciated? And that's why, like, Shaquira, I love what you're doing in terms of like tips for teachers, because it's like, how do we give as much as we can to people who deserve way more than we can give, right? And so I want to make sure I share that.
I love that. I want to spend a moment there. I think this is a really great opportunity for us to each share, like in our respective disciplines, what do we need from each other? You know, what do we need from each other? I know that as a school psychologist, I think, like Miles, you said, we're in thankless. Is it thankless professions? Yeah. We just had National School Psychology Awareness Week last week, and I don't
National School Psychology Week. They changed the name.
Okay, yeah.
National School Psychology
National
Week.
School Psychology Week was last week, and nobody said thank you. Nobody said. Like, it was like, oh, it's okay, you didn't know, it's fine. But yeah, that thank you, right? Or I know oftentimes I think expected again, like to do so many. We need these assessments done. Are you doing counseling with this student? We haven't heard anything. This student is not getting better. Like, I have principals that think a student after 2-3 counseling sessions should be like
healed, over with,
healed. Like I have a magic wand.
It's done.
Yep.
And you know what? You brought up such a great, like, that to me is dehumanizing. Like, I am not a magician. Like, I don't come in and just fix things, right? Like, I am a part of the toolbox. I'm a piece of the toolbox, right? There's other things, like there's other people, there's other supports that these children need, right? And so to put all of that on me is it's hard, it's heavy, and it's tough because I'm still trying to navigate how do I let you know, like, I'm not a magician, by the way. I am working with this student. You have to be patient. Things take time. You know, there's also a component of which, you know, I was trained from a data-based decision-making standpoint. And so when I say, can you show me the data before you want me to provide this assessment? And I have teachers and admin kind of look at me like I have 5 heads sometimes. Because I'm like, no, because my role is to disrupt the inequities, right? We see overrepresentation of Black and Brown students in special education, and emerging bilingual learners as well are overrepresented in those groups. So hold on, I'm going to pump the brakes just a little bit and ask a few questions to get a better understanding to see if we're supporting the student in the best way possible. And sometimes that doesn't, most times that doesn't go well, you know, and I'm still expected to come and smile and, you know, do my job, which I do, and be professional. But it is frustrating. I'm not sure that a lot of folks in the building understand our role, right? A lot of folks use us as testing vehicles, but I'm way more than that. So I think that's one thing that if someone asks me, what do you need? Like, that's what I would tell them. Like, I come with a lot of different skill sets. I'm not a magician. I'm also not just a testing vehicle, right? But let's have these conversations so you get to learn more about what I do, and I can learn more about the needs for your building and your children.
I think that is the biggest problem in education. I feel like that we don't know what we don't know what you do. Like, to be honest, if I not even think of a school psychologist, I'm like, here come another person writing down data. And I'm like, in my selfish teacher brain, I'm like, I'm telling you, this child needs your help and support. And you scheduling back-to-back MTSS meetings with me and nothing is happening. It's about to be like January, and so still needs support, and you have done nothing but collect data. But I don't know what you truly do to get the services. So it's like, you don't know what I need, I don't know what you need. And a lot of the times we are not at open table discussions. Like, as teachers, we are told what to do and to execute it, point blank, period. And so even if I have bite back, I can't give it to you because there's not a space for me. And so in my brain, I'm like, okay, I think a school psychologist should do this. But in your brain, it's like, girl, I got to get some data before I can even pull this kid that you see needs help, because you might think he needs something and I might. And then we got to provide outside resources. And then this person got to get involved. And then administration is like, what did you do? Everything you're supposed to do? Great, good. Check off the list. Next kid. And I know that you guys' caseload is huge. So a lot of the times I'm like, okay, well, let me be empathetic because I'm not the only classroom. I'm not the only teacher whose child needs support. But in the same token, it's like, we don't know what each other's doing. And in a sense, a school should be a community, and we all are literally just fighting our own battles, but we're supposed to have a common ground to help kids succeed. And they can't succeed if we're all like picking at each other. And then we're just like, well, I did my part, you did your part, at least I tried. Wash your hands. Another school year goes and the kid is like matriculating through their education system and nothing has been done. And as an early childhood, I see the issues at 5, and then they can still have the same stuff at 15, and it goes under the rug because nobody did their job. We did what we were told to do, and that was it. So I think there needs to be open table discussions and bringing everybody to the table. And like I always say, closed mouths don't get fed. But I know as teachers, sometimes it's just so overwhelming to the point it was like, well, you're going to do what you want to do anyways. You got to do this. I got to do that. We all got to check off lists. We got somebody to answer to, and on to the next one. So
Shaquira, you know, like you just described the system of schooling perfectly. And unfortunately, the role of school psychologists to a T. And the problem in that statement, as you framed it, school psychologists aren't meeting those unmet needs of students and the school community broadly. Simply put, school psychologists have a major branding problem. Nobody knows what school psychologists do. The reality is we can meet the unmet needs of the entire school community. And so I have been on a mission, and in a lot of the traveling, I've been in a lot of different places talking to a lot of school psychologists. And the role is different wherever you go, but the primary role is exactly what you just described: collecting data, determining eligibility for special education services. And that's a very limited role of what we can do. It's a very small function. And what I have been advocating for is for us to step outside of that role, to clearly define who we are, what we can do to support young people and the school community. Yeah, we can test, we can evaluate, we could collect data, but we could do consultation, working directly with teachers like you. And you might kick us out of your classroom, I get it, but we can work with teachers so that you all can be freed up. I'm hearing a lot of teachers saying, I'm not a counselor, I'm not a social worker, I'm not a parent. Well, school psychologists can support with you all so that you all can do what you all came into the field to do, which is teach. Like, we're experts in collaboration, we're experts in data collection, we're experts in systems level change, we're experts. And my stance has been, school psychologists, we have to see ourselves as leaders in this space. Like, we have to help to address culture, climate at a systemic level so that we can influence change. Because look, let's be real. Like, with the systemic issues that you mentioned, and a lot of my focus has been around disproportionality, Black youth being over-referred for special education in discipline categories, having poor academic achievement, all of these things. And it's systemic practices, policies. So what I have been advocating for is for us to like get out of this testing bubble, because all we're doing is putting kids back into that contaminated water and expecting them to be successful. So you're in early childhood. What you see is a 5-year-old, by the time they get 17, 18 years old, the system has failed them because they've been swimming in contaminated water. And what we can do, like, we can systemically like change that and break out of that so that our young people can thrive. So I would love to hear from y'all. Like, how can we systematically create the conditions from you all's perspective so our young people could thrive?
Miles, I don't know if you can speak on this, but as a leader, do they give you all a certain budget for professional development outside of like being a instructional teacher, an exceptional teacher? Like, say, like you mentioned, like, we don't know what it is, but if we do have to step into, okay, you need to be that counselor, you need to provide this resources, that is fine, but I need to be taught on how to do it. I can't do it if I don't know what that looks like. I can only do in my human nature what I think feels good and what I would want as a human. But in a sense, like, professionally, that may not be right. And so I'm asking Miles, as a leader, like, is there spaces where we can just pause and be like, yeah, y'all got, these kids have to meet a standard, they have to have data, but also too, like, they have to learn how to be human, and they have a lot of outside sources that we have to combat in the school system. We may not want to, but that's what it is, point blank period. Let's shut up and do the work. But is there money allocated for that?
Yeah, so thank you for asking that. So just to give context, in New Orleans, all public schools are charter schools. So it makes things very difficult because we're so decentralized.
Yeah.
That like we're not a district, we're like a network, a district of networks of schools, right? So my school in particular is a single site. And so we're 932 kids, pre-K through 8th grade. We have a CEO who's above me, and then a middle school principal, elementary school principal. And then we figure out from there, like, where our priorities are, right? So when we think about professional development, we have to be able to master time and space with systems, and then also like with our mission and our values. And so in my mind, I'm like, one, yes, there's money that we can allocate to teachers who want to get training in other ways. However, we're in a interesting environment in which teachers are doing very, very hard jobs, and like their day is like, they're like, hey, look, I'm giving from 7:45 to 4 o'clock, and then I'm not giving you nothing else.
Mhm.
Right. And which rightfully so, like I respect boundaries, right? But like to be a great anything, you can't just give the normal amount of hours, right? But when you don't have the training to be able, that's trauma informed, when you don't have the understanding of from a mental health standpoint, like the soft skills of a mental health counselor, a psychologist, etc., and you don't have those skills, it's very, very hard to be able to get the training and support that you need to be able to like not burn out, right? We live in a city that is dealing not only with the trauma from families in terms of Hurricane Katrina, still dealing with the pandemic, dealing with Hurricane Ida here, dealing with a lot of different trauma, bro. Like we are in a very tough community, and I mean, crime is like through the roof. Quick context, just so you understand what we're dealing with. My tires, all 4 tires on my car, were taken in broad daylight in front of the school, 10 o'clock in the morning, right? And so when you're in a community where that's what you're seeing, like it's hard to think about. Like when you're thinking about your safety, you're not thinking about being kind to somebody, right? And so that's why when we talk about like values and like our school culture being so important, it's like, all right, let's do a checklist in our mind. Are we being safe? Are we safe right now? Right? If everybody knows what being safe looks like, even our 4-year-olds know like that wasn't safe. Are we being kind? If it's not safe, kind. If we're not intentional and moving with purpose, and we're not finding joy in what we're doing, if we're not doing all 4 of those things, we're not aligned. And so then how do we check that? And I think so. To I don't know if it's answering your point in terms of budget, but I think when we're talking about training, it's like when we don't have a bunch of trainings that can be trauma informed, et cetera, it's like, how do we go back to what our foundation is? And then from there, like, all right, so I noticed when you were talking to the student, what you said, well, the way you said what you said could be perceived as this. And since it was that, this is what you can say differently next time. Right. And then also like, and encouraging that, right? Like I'm not in a position that I can tell any teacher that I'm trying to get rid of any teachers, right? Like I would much rather develop the people that we have and for them to continue to grow and feel valued and acknowledged and coached than get them out of the profession, because I'm not trying to hire somebody else to fit our culture, because we have a very unique way of doing things. And so like I think that's the way that I kind of view it in terms of supporting Black students.
On a national level, Shaquira, there is, I don't know if you know, but there's a $1 billion initiative around mental health, especially from, and I don't know how it is over there in Canada, but in the States, of mental health grants that was recently awarded billions. That funding has been earmarked, in some instances, a portion of that to local education agencies, LEAs, and districts. Mental health training programs, technical assistance. And so that money has trickled down. And so we're talking about billions of dollars that are readily available. And at the LEA level, so your state level, whatever you're at, like there should be, depending on your district, budgets earmarked straight for professional development. Then at the school level, that money trickles down to the school level. There are certain dollars depending on the size of your school. If you're Title I, there might be more or less available, but let's not get it confused. There's absolutely money available for training, for teachers, for educators, that's out there.
Yeah, I think, Miles, you touched on a good point about building capacity, though, right? So how do we expect teachers to, you're working all day, okay, stay after? No, we can't ask you to do that without paying you, but we can't ask you to do weekend work without paying you. So now when you have PD days, right, for example, and teachers need to catch up on work, the last thing they're trying to do is add something else to the plate. So I get, Shaquira, I get it, because we have on PD days, we're expected to go and provide professional development.
Right.
And we got teachers who got their laptops up, like trying to
Literally.
I wish you would say something.
I'm trying to laminate and text parents,
Yeah.
and then I'm thinking I gotta go hang up my bulletin board. Let's
Yeah.
go. Like,
Yeah.
I want to hear you. I promise you I do, but I got a limited amount of time. And so it just sounds like we just have so much to do in so little time. And it's just unfair on
Yeah.
all parties.
Yeah.
Like, even if you want to, you
Yeah.
can't.
I'll say one thing. Some of the work that we're doing right now, supporting schools who are having challenges with their youth using harmful language, racial slurs, epithets, pejoratives. We are going in and providing direct intervention to the students. But a part of that work is you must, if the building receives this professional development and direct intervention for the students, you must have a staff member aid in the facilitation of that presentation, because we don't want to come in and drop this information off and we're out, and now you all are like, okay, they came in, these two, like they came in, talked about these things, and we don't really know, right? And so a part of us developing and the facilitation of that was, we want to build capacity for your buildings for generations, right? So what does that look like? That looks like making sure that your staff is there and not just sitting there and watching, but they're a part of it, right? So the information that youth are getting, staff are getting, same language. And when I tell you, we went to a staff meeting a few weeks ago to just say, just to give them a heads up, we gave them some information about the board policies and protocols regarding how they need to disrupt and interrupt when there is harmful language. We had some staff that they were sick of seeing us. I'm just gonna, like, they were like, what? They were not, there was no buy-in. And so today, I think, or yesterday we spoke to their classes actually. And again, a part of receiving that professional development meant your staff need to be a part of this and they need to contribute. And whether that means taking a piece of the presentation and making it their own, or going up and writing down answers on the board, some type of active participation. When I tell you, both of those teachers came up to us and said, wow, thank you so much. I learned so much. And we're talking about difficult conversations. We're talking about the history of racism, where teachers were like, how do we talk about this in class? How do we, which I get it. It's hard I get it. We're in a polarized environment, but to build capacity, that's what building capacity looks like, right? And their minds were changed. It came up to us and they were really, really grateful. You could just tell the difference, right? So I think it's a balance of like not putting more on your plate, right? But how do we build capacity in leveraging what we already have? We already have you at school during these hours. Your youth can benefit from this, and so can you. The language is similar. How can we leverage that relationship in that time that we already have, that you're in the building,
And I see it as preventative work, right? Like everything that Krista shared, but I think a piece of that is that ounce of prevention is a pound of cure, right? So for us walking in and offering a lot of these services up front, what we're hoping is that on the back end of that, we're going to have students that feel empowered to call things in and call things out when it doesn't feel good for them, right? And giving educators the opportunity to receive that. Because I think sometimes as educators and sometimes as adults, when a student challenges you, the first thing that goes up is, what? You can't speak to me this way? But giving permission to say, man, thank you so much for entrusting me with this. That builds that emotional connectedness too, that builds that safety in that relationship. So that student is like, wow, my teacher valued my opinion, which goes a long way than students recording their teachers and outing them and putting them on social media and right, like that cancel culture piece. So we've had situations where we've given the language and the support to students to call things in and out when they see that things are not working for them. And the reverse of that, where educators felt comfortable enough to go there with the student, comfortable enough in their emotionality, comfortable enough in grounding themselves to have difficult conversations and be in courageous spaces where they can be vulnerable and do that emotional connectedness. And that's where, to me, to your question, Byron, when you asked earlier, how do we thrive? I think that connection with professionals like you shared earlier, right? I think there's a good pairing between social work and psychologists, right? There's that tandem effect. We understand mental health. We understand some of the pieces that go into structural inequities. And so leveraging your connections with folks that are of similar fields of view and supporting in that way together and providing those preventative pieces goes a long way. The other piece for me is really that connection to community. The school is an extension of community. And Miles, you touched on it, right? When a community is not doing well, when there's issues of folks feeling unsafe, when there's issues of criminality and crime and students showing up and feeling unsafe, that trickles into the school environment too. So which services and who is in your community? And how do you leverage them to come into your schools? And I'll tell you, I fought tooth and nail to get certain identity-based Afrocentric community agencies to come into our board.
Mhm.
Right. And that was because of the pushing and the advocacy and the connection with other professionals to say, we just can't have a one size fits all service provider. We have to have tailored support. So who is in our community of care and how do we build a village? How do we create supports around us? And that's what helps me thrive, is really those community connections and making connections with people that I know hold the same values as me, who are going to be co-conspirators. And there's always one or two in the building,
Mhm.
right? Sometimes they're tucked away, sometimes, they're overworked. But if you can leverage those folks to work alongside you, I really do think that there's a model there. There's something that could be done beautiful for that school.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And as a teacher, like I can say, like, don't ever be afraid to pause us, because we can be very stubborn. And like Miles, as you know, like as a leader and you guys come into classrooms, like, yeah, our brain is working overtime. But when you legit pause us and it's forced, I don't want to say forced because that's a heavy word, but like when it's like you have no choice and then I leave with a benefit, continue to do that. Like the work is needed, and just don't be afraid to pause us, because we are stubborn and we got a lot going on, but we need everything that you guys are bringing to us.
One thing about educators too, educators are learners and they're also teachers, right? And so like my experience at least, most people want to be able to learn. And then whenever you can relate something back to kids, it's important. And one thing I'm very proud of is our student culture. We're very proactive in terms of like behavior response, thinking about like even like in terms like we're restorative practice school. That's kind of what my training and my background is in. And like we have a lot of folks who are like, and when you talk about buy-in, and I was talking to my mentor recently. That's how I'm getting fed, man. I gotta talk to people. And one of the things that he said to me was, Miles, you're using the word buy-in, which is very like capitalistic language, right? You're not selling something to these people. You're trying to get aligned on like, what the vision is, what your mission is. Like you have the vision, people just get alignment with other folks, and like, and then let's get on the same page, right? And one of the things, we're all on the same page about what we believe to be true about kids and for kids, but when it comes to adult interactions, are not as aligned always, right? And I've also learned that a lot of adults have not learned the SEL that we're teaching kids. And so how do we support adult SEL? How do we support adult mental health so that they can use those same tools that they were using with kids with one another? Because oftentimes, like in classrooms, teachers they can control the climate in their room. I got 28 kids. These are my 28 kids. Nothing else is nobody coming in here. No, I can do whatever I want. Whereas like anybody outside of that room, we're dealing with all the uncontrollables most of the time, and like trying to control that as much as we possibly can. And I think that being able to have I think that requires a certain level of self-awareness, a certain level of that can be taught easily. And it's like, how do we teach the same things that we teach to kids, or we're expecting of kids for adults?
I think that's something to just jump off of that it really resonated with me what you said around that capitalistic perspective, right? Like that buy-in piece. Because then, people can see through that. It's fake because they're like, you're trying to sell me something. I know what you're trying to do, right? Yeah. So one thing that I know Krista, myself, and the other folks that we work with in collaborating with work is we try to really speak to people and try to win their hearts and minds, right? So it's really about like, that's how you shift culture. That's how you shift how people view. And I think that's what helped us in reframing, even for those two educators. I'll tell you, when we walked in that space, I left sweating. I was like, Krista, I don't know. I don't know about this school. I'm nervous, right? Because really, it's a big site, 800 intermediate students, right? 7 and 8, 800 classrooms that we're providing this content to, right? And so when you have two teachers that are really opposed to it, it can really poison the pool, right? It can really bring folks down. And so really one of the things that we left from that conversation was, okay, how do we shift the hearts and minds of these folks? And it was just as simple as making them active participants, making them as comfortable as they needed to be to say, yeah, we're going to walk you through this and it's going to be really hard. And this is the expectation for us to be in this space with you, because there's a lot of other schools wanting this content. And those educators, like Krista shared, was like, they were so enamored. They were like, whoa, like I didn't think I can go there. I didn't know I could be comfortable to have these difficult conversations. And yeah, it was different. It was, you could see the shift in their hearts and minds as this content was being delivered versus when we first walked in, we were sweating. We were like, oh no. Canada's a very different environment to the US. We're just starting to feel comfortable to talk about race. Yeah. Crazy as it is, right? There's been a large history and a long history of a denial of anti-Black racism here in Canada, right? There's been a denial of that. And there's, in our board, which is the biggest public board here in Ottawa, one of the big pieces is for a long time, grassroots communities and Black communities were saying, hey, our students are being pushed out. Our Black children are being disproportionately suspended. Their graduation rates are not great. And it took our Black director just last year to say we're collecting race-based data, right? And so that, think about it. So for 30 something years, these grassroots organizations were pushing for this, saying anecdotally or through stories, this is the experience, this is experience. But as soon as we had a Black director come in and say, we're collecting race-based data, all of a sudden it was like, this is quantifiable. We can see it in the numbers. And that's what changed the system and saying, okay, we need differentiated resources. We need access to different types of mental health. We need tailored, critically responsive care. We need critically responsive curriculum. And so that's how our roles really were developed, right? That mental health pool, that money that you're speaking about, it was a result of collecting this race-based data. So I love it when a psychologist is like, show me the data. I'm like, yeah, show them the data. Because our words, it's not landing. Our words are not landing. So let's quantify this. Let's figure this out. Show me the data, right? And so I think that's how we've been really like pushing, is not just through storytelling, because that's also a part of reclaiming our stories. So when I hear parents come in and share their stories, when I hear communities share their stories of feeling marginalized or not feeling welcome in spaces, those stories are so important. And it's supplementary to the data that gets collected. So we're trying to figure out, how do we bring the two together? Because that's a part of our reclaiming as well. Because for a lot of African Caribbean and Black folks, we talk, and that's how we get things out. So yeah, that's going to be our next iteration of this, is how do we bring the two together? Yeah.
Miles, he made a comment, and I wanna answer that. Miles, you want to phrase that, and then I want to respond to that.
Yeah. So when Sadia was talking about just now, like gathering race-based data, we are a school that is like very open and transparent about race. We talk about it a lot. We disaggregate our data about it a lot. I've been very clear about, like, we have a gap in achievement between our Black students, our white students, our economically disadvantaged students, et cetera. But then, so we have this data and we are showing it and you can see it. And then it's, now what, right? How are we supporting Black? Like, so yeah, we know this. Now what are we going to do with it? And that's been a challenge, because it's like, we haven't, like, we have to shift how our time looks. We have to shift how our training looks. We have to shift how all these things are, and change is like, it's hard, it's slow. And we're also in a system that's requiring us to do standardized tests, which we already know are not benefiting Black children, right? And so it's like, how are we doing something different to kind of change these outcomes? And so, yeah, Byron, I want to hear your thoughts, bro, because we're struggling.
Yeah, and this is earlier I talked about my mission being to improve outcomes for youth of color. Like, that is great. It's catchy. Like, when I said, you know what I'm talking about, but how do we measure that? And for me, it was disaggregating that data. So office discipline referrals, you can measure that. Attendance, academic achievement, these are things that are quantifiable. And then qualitative data as well. My research was around an investigation of Castle Select programs. And I looked at which programs are improving outcomes for Black youth who've been historically marginalized. And so we have all the data. I even went as far as to create an app to help people to understand risk indices and risk ratios around disproportionality, around school discipline, so that people can understand the data. And it was great. And Miles, I got this exact question. It was a school in Austin. It was like, yo, this data is cool, but what do we do with it? And the answer is, and I pulled from Paul Gorski. He's dope. He has the equity literacy framework, if you're not familiar with that. And for him, it's very clear. Recognize, understand the data, understand all of these things, talk to the people, get the need, understand it, recognize, and then respond. Got to take action and respond to it. How do you respond to it? Well, for me, that was creation of a SEL curriculum. And so I moved from, yes, we understand the data. Now let's take action by providing interventions and supports to our youth who've been historically marginalized. And I think this is an important part. Like, we have to respond in everything that we're doing. We can process, we can take mindful moments, but we got to respond. Like, we have to take action in very thoughtful ways. And it could be as an example, if it's responding to discipline, like, how can you respond to discipline once you understand the data? Shaquira, providing trainings to staff, right? As a psychologist, I can work with teachers to understand what your data means. Here are interventions. If it's, academic achievement, you can get academic interventions that are evidence-based that actually work. Moving away, de-emphasizing, we don't talk about that enough, like stopping what doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like, let's stop doing what doesn't work in education and move towards what works. And importantly, like, we got to take action. And I talked to Chris about this earlier, within our sphere of control. And I think that's important because it's easy to get burdened by the systemic things that we can't directly influence and change. But if we can start within our sphere of control where we can immediately impact, you got to do that. So in short, you got to recognize the need and then respond to it and take action any way that you can.
And decolonize everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Because
Got to make it black. Got to make it black, y'all.
I mean, you
Listen, all right.
Discipline, like, okay, I love that you all are, Miles, at your school, y'all are emphasizing the restorative practices, because we do that here too. Like, it is a part of social emotional learning, right? How can we talk to each other and let people know what you did hurt me, and take an opportunity to repair the harm, and how do we move forward, right? There's so much learning that happens in that. Byron, when you're talking about curricular or academic achievement, one thing I have been asking my a lot of teachers who are struggling with engagement is, how culturally responsive is your instruction? Because today we're doing presentations about the N-word and the history and the legacy of this word, right? And some teachers are saying, oh, so we'll bring this back up when we talk about history in January. No. You talking about geography today? Where was this happening in the world? Yeah. At what time? Yeah. Infuse these things into your curriculum, make them culturally responsive and relevant. And that is how you help with engagement, right?
And not just curriculum. Like, there go this latency. Y'all, my latency is terrible. My bad, Krista. Go ahead.
It actually is. I'm like, but yeah, not just curriculum, right? But I'm just saying there are ways, right? We see the engagement is downhill right now. Yeah. And partially a lot of that is we're dealing with post-COVID babies who were going to school from their bed. Yep. So what does it look like for the physical classroom layout? Is it flexible, or do they have to sit in a chair for 8 hours, something that they haven't done for 2 years? Like, it really does look like we have to disrupt and kind of decolonize everything that we have been trained to do, and question it. And it takes a long process of unlearning, consulting, trying it again, and seeing how it went, right?
Right. And I think on a teacher perspective, like, to rewind a little bit, you guys mentioned, like, how do we respond? To me, like, when I have those parent teacher conferences and say it's like a child who's like struggling in their behavior, I hate writing referrals, but I know that's something I have to do. And I know that as Black and brown kids, like, something that they get flagged at the 3 or 5-year-old level will follow them. Yeah. And so it hurts me, because I'm like, and even like, if you read the fine print on certain reports, it's like, this child is a threat to themselves and others, and that can follow them. And so my response as a teacher, like, when I'm having conferences, like, I tell them as Miss Langley, and then I take off my hat. I'm like, okay, I'm telling you as Shaquira, you don't want this for your baby. Mm-hmm. So help me help you, and let's help each other for the sake of so and so, because you, like, it's too early for your child to be viewed as a threat. So to me as a teacher, my response is telling the community. So, like, I have to do this in order to, in a sense, like, we can be like, we have to protect ourselves as teachers, because sometimes children can be very harmful, and like we see in the news, like, it can go left really quickly. So to protect us, we do have to do those things. But in a sense, like, if I can see that this behavior can be corrected with the help at home and at school. My response is to not just be Miss Langley, but I'm going to be human and tell you as Shaquira, like, we don't want this paper trail for your baby at 3. He is not a threat to himself and others, because technically schools look at it like, if you can't survive in school, you can't survive in like the outside world. And we don't want that as early as 3. And so my response is telling the community. So I think, we can add that as well.
And our role is to advocate to disrupt that language.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because that is, sorry, you mentioned that's coded language. And to label and have that follow a child,
Literally.
we know the harm that happens with
Mhm.
that. So our role, as sort of, I guess, kind of systems level folks, like, we need to be advocating for, hey, we need to address this. We need to change this protocol. We need to open our mouths and say something about that too.
Yeah, and I think also, like, just bouncing off of that, like, how do we lead with curiosity and be like, I think it's a human nature thing for us to, something that we don't understand, try to put a box and make meaning of it, right? But if we're being real, if it's a 4-year-old baby, right, they're the only child, they're running away from class, they don't want to do any preferred activities, they're doing XYZ, this baby literally is like, you're telling them that they've been told their entire do. And then now you're giving them structure. Yeah, they're going to fight back against that. They're going to fight back against it. Just like you as a teacher, I'm telling you that you need to do this. You don't want to do what I told you to do because I told you to do something, right?
Different.
And so, like, right. And some people comply, but some people don't. And that's okay. How do we get to the bottom of it? Why is this happening? How can what supports can we put in place? What are things that we are doing that is probably making it a problem for this kid, right? How can we abbreviate this kid's day? What things can we incorporate? So, like, how do we ask questions? And I think it's easy, like, I'm also want to be like, acknowledge that in the school day, like, everything is under a pressure cooker, right? You have a finite amount of time to do a lot of things, and like you have so much that's going on, and like, you have to, like, the way that we master time and space is like, we have to slow things down, connect. Like you said, like, I'm Shaquira right now. I'm not Miss Langley. Like, that's the way that I try to approach, like, meetings. When I'm in them, I'm like, I understand I'm the principal, yes, but like, I'm team Krista, right? Everything, like, I'm on your same team. We're all on the same team. We want what's best for your baby. You trust them with us. How can we be on the same page as you to make sure that you're getting your kid what they need? And if we don't approach it that way, especially for our Black babies, and like we talk about, connection and community is so important to us. If we don't approach it that way, and we approach it any other way, we're doing them a disservice, and we're also doing ourselves a disservice as experts in our field and in our profession. So I want to make sure I shared that point.
Wow. On that note, I think we need a part 2, or we need something, right?
This keeps going on and on and on. We gotta do a part 2.
We might have to do a part 2 if everyone's providing consent at some point to do a part 2.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because there's so many powerful minds on this call right now, and we scrapped all the questions. We answered everything we needed to answer in this.
Good thing we scrapped it. I didn't know a good answer to those questions, but I knew what we was talking about. I knew what we was talking about.
Y'all knew the vibes. Y'all knew the vibes, okay? But on that note, I do want to wrap up. But I guess as we wrap up, I just want to challenge us to kind of put to the world, like, what our mission and our goal is in the work that we do. I guess, just given the conversation we had, we've talked a little bit about it, but if you could just sum it up, like, and my mission is to, I can go first. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in. As an identity specific school psychologist, as a Black scholar, as a researcher, my mission is to really leverage the strengths that Black children have, and really allow those strengths to really permeate, whether it is in the classroom, in the family system, in the community, and really build connectedness amongst us, because we've gone through so much as a community for decades and centuries. I feel like my purpose and my goal is to really bridge and connect us again, however that looks. So, yeah.
Oh, you're looking at me.
Yeah.
Wow, how do I go after that? So I was really thinking deeply about what is my mission. I think if I can summarize it, my mission is to help African, Caribbean, and Black students reclaim their own path to healing that is decolonized. Whether that's through spirituality, whether that's through religion, whether that's through connectedness with nature, whether that's through whatever that may look like for their specific ethnicity, their specific upbringing, like really reclaiming that as part of mental health and mental wellness. Because I think sometimes that gets marginalized. So a part of that for me was beekeeping, right? So really encouraging folks to try things outside of your comfort zones, try connecting to things that you never thought that you can connect to, or you thought that wasn't a space for you. Reclaim that. And just as a plug, beekeepers are the oldest people on earth, just putting it out there. We have the longest life expectancies. So, come play with bees. I'm just throwing it out there.
It's healing for you.
It's healing for you. But again, I think that would be my mission.
And Sadia, where can we find you or your bee?
Yeah.
Give us your plug.
So my Instagram is Sadie and the Bee Honeyco. So you can follow me on Instagram, Sadie and the Bee Honeyco. I can put it in the. Is there a way to put it in the chat?
Well, just spell it for the audience.
Okay.
Yeah.
SADIE Honeyco. So Sadie and the BANDTHEBEE, all one word, Honeyco. And that's my Instagram handle. You can follow me there. You can send me messages. You can ask questions, and I'm happy to answer. Questions.
Amazing.
Is your tagline "Come play with the bees"?
No,
you said that earlier.
Listen, I'm really trying to get people excited to think about bees as something playful, because people get scared, and I blame Candyman. So I got a beef with the movie Candyman, but that's another day, another time. But no, my tagline would be "Bounty from the Hive."
Love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, the bee movie is get me there. Is what will get me to come check out the bees. For real.
Yeah. Miles, you want to give your plug and your mission before we hop off?
Yeah. I'm struggling to make my mission sound as concise and beautiful as yours. I think my mission, and it's evolving, is grounded in how are we centering the experience of our most marginalized kids and empowering and supporting educators to make that like their mission as well, right? And I think that's by creating like a safe, kind, intentional, and joyful place for kids to go to school. And if we incorporate students as a part of that process, families as a part of that process, teachers as a part of that process, social workers, psychologists, etc., as leaders as a part of that process, man, like we can create a system of schools that actually gets the outcomes that we seek. And so that's my mission. And I think outside of that, it's like, how do I take care of myself in the process and model that? I'm not doing the best job of that right now, but working on it. And so trying to make sure that I model that so other educators and other people can figure out how we do this. And so follow me on social media, the THE Miles Miles WILL. Reach out to me on social media. I care about conversations that matter. Passion, education, I respond to that type of stuff, and like want to be able to resource share and be an advocate and be able to also just like be my authentic self, because it's very hard to unapologetically be yourself in this climate. And I think it's important to be able to show that for my kids and for our teachers. And so, so follow me there, talk to me, engage. I want to be able to engage with folks in a meaningful way.
Thank you. Shaquira, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I would just say in short, my mission is to teach out loud, and that's inside and outside the classroom. So whether I'm happy or I'm hurting, I am vulnerable in all aspects. And truthfully, like as much as I love the kids and I'm advocating for them and I do my work because of them, I also am advocating and elevating teacher voices, because we are in the trenches and we're going through it and it's not easy. And so I am really like trying to like save us. Like we are dropping like flies, and I have been on that fence one too many times, but it fuels me to be in conversation and to elevate teacher voices. And like I said, teach out loud, because it's not easy. And for a long time, we have gotten the short end of the stick, and we still are, but it just takes spaces like this and speaking up to keep us, and to also like just be in community and know that we are not alone. So I'm here to teach out loud and just help and try to save educators, because without us, like, it's hard, and for the sake of the next generation, we have to fight the good fight and just be in it all in. So you can follow me at Shaquira underscore SHAQUIRA. And if you are looking to be in community with other educators, you can follow the Millennial Teacher Podcast and Tips for Teachers Apparel.
Lovely. Byron?
Yeah, my mission has always been the same. My mission is to improve outcomes for Black youth. Uh, I'm also here to shift mindsets from what's wrong to what's strong and essentialism. Y'all go check that out. One of the things they
Hey,
talk about is this concept of when, what's important now. And for me, what's important now is building out one of the first large language models using generative AI for Black folks. Like, we got to create our own. We absolutely have to create our own, and creating this model for school psychologists so that we could do our jobs more efficiently, to tap into the full scope of our practice. Um, of those things got to lead to economic empowerment. Um, we don't talk enough about that. Like, we talk about, doing a social good, which is important, but we gotta got to think about our legacy. And so right now we got to have a conversation about economic empowerment. And so that's how I'm going to win. And my social medias, B McClure6 on Instagram, School Psych Life on Twitter. Again, I'm the CEO of the Black School Psych Network. So follow us on social media, the Black SPs across all social media platforms, and make sure that you support the good work that we're doing to support, elevate, and advance the work of Black school psychologists.
Yeah.
Krista, back to you.
Yeah. Back to me. Okay. So yeah, follow us on all social media platforms at the Black SPS. That is, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, Facebook. You can also follow me. I didn't even put my own stuff out there. My Instagram is OMG, it's Krista D. So OMG, it's KRISTA. DEE_. So that is me. You can follow me and connect with me too. Just a last few announcements. Our second annual summit is in April 25th to April 26th. And we have the Dr. Tama Bryant, the president of American Psychological Association, will be our keynote speaker. So please, we are open. It's not just Black school psychologists that attend. We have educators, we have teachers, we have
Yeah,
families.
y'all got to come through. Y'all
Y'all
got to
really
come
should
through.
come. Send your people. Come through. Like, we're gonna be in Atlanta. We're gonna have a good time. We had a good time last year. We had about 500 people come. So the
That was the
next year,
first time we did it.
that was the first one. We ain't know.
And like, you felt seen. You didn't have to like explain why you're here. Like, y'all know when like you're at these conferences or events or in schools where you work and you walk by someone, they don't look at you and like, am I really supposed to? You don't feel that. It feels like a Hampton homecoming where you're embraced by love. It's this good energy that's surrounding you. So y'all pull up in Atlanta April 25th through the 26th.
Yeah, and lastly, for the viewers, if y'all are, for those who come back and watch or are still on, two reminders. By December 31st is the application for graduate students to attend to get your conference registration fee waived. So get that in by December 31st, and then November 15th. Oh no, we already had that. We done with that. All right, cool. Yeah. So December 31st is our applications for our grad students. That's just my last thing on my housekeeping list. So thank you all so much for attending. Please follow us and reach out if you have any questions.
Bye, guys.
Bye. See you, everyone.
Did you stop recording?
mm.
We're all pro.